You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, I have an amazing guest, an emerging and upcoming author who's really telling a tale that I think is very important. Going to school, going back to school is huge, and starting a new school is even bigger when it comes to our kids and being able to have not only a support system, but also a book to help explain the situation, but also being able to really talk about this and put some words to the situation because it can be overwhelming. And so taking the guesswork out of it. So joining me live in studio on Live Your True Life Perspectives is David Valovcin. David is an up-and-coming emerging new author of A Desk to Lean On, as well as a financial services technologist. David, great to have you in the studio. How are you doing?
Good, Ashley. I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm just glad to have you here. It's going to be awesome because I love your book. I read it a couple times, and it's so great for right now, and it's so important, especially when kids are going back to school.
Well, absolutely. This is the time of year when kids are starting new schools, going back to school. It's a very exciting, but also a very hectic time for sure.
It definitely is, and I think that with kids, it's hard, because you're trying to, deal with the stress. But I also think, from a parental perspective, it can be stressful too, in trying to figure out how to align, but also how to, create that positive energy is really important too.
Absolutely. Kids are nervous. The parents are also nervous too, but they have to be there for their children. It's definitely just as stressful in many ways and in different ways for parents.
I totally agree with you. So let's talk about this. So this is your first book. I love it. A Desk to Lean On. So tell me a bit more about, your origin and where this concept came from.
Right. So when I wrote this book, I am married with an only daughter. Her name is Grace. She is the inspiration of this book. And while I was writing it, Grace was preparing to go to a new school. And, of course, she was a bit nervous about it. And so I thought that would be a very interesting story. I know it's a common theme with regards to parents in general and kids just, getting ready for the new school year and all the preparations that have to go with it. And I thought I would just, I wanted to create a book that actually tells, my daughter's story, how she.
I like that. I like that, and I like the concept, in the beginning, where she's super cute, by the way, with the stuffed animals on the bed and what have you, and she gets up and sees you in the kitchen. And then it's she's still in her pajamas, which is also super cute. And then how you call her Boo Boo Bear. So is that her real nickname?
Oh, absolutely. I have always been calling her Boo Boo Bear, even when she was an infant. So I still call her that today, and she loves it. She loves it. But yes, I definitely call her Boo Boo Bear. And that's also how I came up with the name of the publishing for the book, Boo Boo Bear Publishing. So that's a name I've been giving her for quite some time now.
I love that. And then, so she's getting ready, and now it's interesting too, because now she's having to go to a new school, and she has this stress and this anxiety from it, this fear. And I think this is really important for a lot of kids right now, because a lot of people are moving. Parents are having to move because of career changes. Maybe they're moving from different areas of the country, or maybe not making a huge move, but a move that's necessary where the children are having to change schools. So let's talk a little bit about that topic, because that can be really overwhelming and stressful in and of itself.
Absolutely, because there's so many unknowns. I mean, especially with the going to a new school, you don't know anybody, you don't know the teachers, you may not have any friends yet at this new school. So the unknowns can be worrisome enough for a child, and as a parent, you help your child through that.
And so what are some of the things that you think are really important for parents to do in this situation, how to encourage their children, and then how to open that line of communication? What are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, I would suggest listen to them, no matter what their age is, even if they're really young and they're maybe going into pre-K or kindergarten, let them express their feelings in however they wish. And just for the parents to just be there for them. Don't try to force out how they're feeling. Let them voluntarily express it. I'm sure as a parent, and I know that happened with me, you can actually tell when the child is getting nervous and they're not saying anything. I did not pressure Grace to tell me what's wrong, what's happening. As a parent, I could figure it out that we're getting close to that school year. She's nervous. It's a new school. And I think it's just important for parents to just be there for their children and allow their children to express their feelings in whatever manner is comfortable for their child.
And I think that's super important too, because I think the idea is sometimes we can't always solve it. Sometimes we can't always calm, certain emotions. But I think just the idea of being open to and listening is very important. And in this book, that's what I find is so great, David, is because, you're basically giving, your daughter Grace the room to search for answers, the room to analyze her situation, and then, to find avenues to solve her issues.
Agree. Yes. And, and as long as, giving some empowerment to your child is also, very important. Instead of trying to direct them and force them in a certain manner or have them be forced into a specific feeling, oh, you should feel like this, or you should feel excited, you should be brave about it. They may eventually get to it. They should eventually get to that, but let it happen in their own time. Don't force the feeling on them. Let it come out naturally. And if you let it come out naturally, your child will be, more comfortable coming to talk to you about it. And just again, it's very important not to, force the feelings or force the information out of your child. They're already nervous enough. Let them express their feelings in however makes them feel comfortable.
I totally agree with you, David, because I think that right now, more than ever, I think all of us need to be able to be in an environment where we can express our feelings and not feel, not feel unheard. And I think feeling heard alone, and I like how you said too, it's you sometimes find yourself wanting to say, hey, it's going to be okay, you're going to love it, you're eventually going to love it, you're going to find all these friends, but it's kind of good to take a step back and let them express their fear without trying to, maybe sugarcoat it or change it in that moment.
Agree. And, I think it's also important, for parents to use their own experiences. What was it like for them starting a new school or going into a new grade? That way their child can relate, and it's not something that's unique to them. As long, especially if they're hearing stories from their own parents about, how they got over their, the courage to start the new school or start the new grade. I think if there's a good sense of relationship and discussion that can be had, if the parent can bring up their own experiences.
I agree. And so that's interesting too, because I didn't think about that. So did you ever experience this growing up too, is changing schools or being in a new school? I mean, do you remember some of those feelings you had?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I went to a new school for elementary school, and then I went to another new school for high school. Of course, even getting older, the feelings are still somewhat the same. You're nervous. You don't know anybody. You don't know the teachers. And, it just, there's a process, and for me personally, it was more of, getting involved in different activities, for elementary school, going to play out on the playground. For high school, getting involved with different clubs, and that helped get me to know people, get to know the teachers, and then make friends from there.
And so you've been through it yourself, so you know exactly how it was growing up.
Absolutely, absolutely, and the fear is there, of course, and the nervousness, and my parents were there for me. They helped me through it. They shared their own experiences, so for sure that definitely helped me as a child.
Well, and I also like it too, in the book where, Grace is sitting at her desk and she's leaning on her desk, and she starts thinking about things. And I like the concept of the private investigator. I like how she becomes like the PI in this. And so is this part of Grace's, mode of operandi? Does she like to wear the PI hat and start figuring things out as well?
Absolutely. I mean, whether it's, she's looking for a toy, she uses a big extra large magnifying glass, and she uses that to scan the house, and she's, looking for her toys, or she's joking around by looking for our dog. It's like, Grace is on the case, if you will, and, she likes to solve those kind of mysteries.
That's great. And I like how, Grace is on the case, in this book where Grace is trying to figure out, how to pretty much how to get out of going to this new school, which is a great way. I like how there's kind of the juxtaposition on that. So she's trying to figure out her ways out by connecting with her friends and seeing if they have any information for her or any avenues to go down.
Right. And what you find in the book is that her friends help her by bringing up stories of how Grace helped them, and it kind of brings out the courage in Grace and the reminder that she helped other people. Her friends are helping her. She's not alone in it.
Mm-hmm. So she's not alone in the situation, and how she came to their aid in multiple situations when they themselves were not feeling very confident, or they themselves felt like a fish out of water.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. They had their own nervousness, and, Grace was personable and excited to meet them and made them feel comfortable.
And I also like how, the parent dynamic in the story, lets Grace, go on her investigative, journalistic type experience by not trying to hamper her and stop her from seeing her friends or having that conversation.
Right. And, in the book, the father, myself, initially started to try to reassure her. Grace got upset. And then, in the book, I took a step back and I let her drive, the resolution, try to find out the answer on her own, which obviously she eventually did.
And I like that, because that's the only way that children really learn, I think, and any of us really learn, is doing it on our own and figuring that out and experiencing that on our own. And so I like how, and I see that part too, where you basically step back and say, okay, you were about to say, hey, everything's gonna be fine. And then she doesn't really want to hear it. And you could have continued down that pathway, but you're like, okay, wait, I'm going to give her some space and then let her figure it out.
Absolutely. Correct. Definitely.
So I find it interesting, how the story keeps on moving forward, and how we have the interactions with Grace and her friends, the interaction, not only the physical interaction as far as being in the home of her good friend that lives down the street, but then her other good friend who is not nearby, how they get on FaceTime or whatever and start chatting from two different places.
Right. And, because that it's, the message I'm trying to give there, that there's other ways to communicate, of course. There's the neighbor next door friend, and then there's the friend across town, and that the support structure is there. It doesn't have to always be a physical presence of somebody in the house or, a friend next door. There could also be a friend to talk on the phone, video chat, whatever you like.
I love that. So David and I have lots more to talk about when we return. We'll be talking more about the symbolism as well as the desk in the book, more about, the back to school and what back to school means, not only to the children, but to parents, and being able to navigate these situations, as well as the importance of literacy. So we have a lot more coming up, as well as David's nuggets of wisdom here at the top of the hour as well. So stay tuned. We have lots more coming up. Don't change the channel. Live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time, you know it. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Joining me today is upcoming and emergency author David Valovcin. David and I are talking about his first book, A Desk to Lean On. And right before the break, we were talking about how Grace, the main character in the book, is talking to her friends about trying to figure out, basically how to get out of going to this new school and ways of getting around it. And so we were talking about how Grace had the next door neighbor friend who she was able to communicate with directly, but also how she had her other friend who she was able to communicate on FaceTime. And it's so great how we live in this technological world where we have these options. So David, I thought it was great how you had that aspect in the book too. So it wasn't necessarily you had to be in the same place, but you could still communicate with that person.
Exactly. Right. And, I wanted to make the point that, the support structure can come in multiple avenues. You have the physical presence next door. And then, of course, with all the technology today and the phone and the FaceTime, there's other methods of communication. There's other methods of support.
Being able to acknowledge the fact that we have a support system. Sometimes the support system is not local. And I think that's important because I think a lot of people are moving and doing different things, but you still want to stay connected with people. And I don't think that just because you can't see them doesn't mean that you can't still be connected with them.
I agree. And, I think it's important that people do take advantage of that and take advantage of the technology side of it that allows for that level of communication to occur.
So with both of these friends in the book, as Grace is really trying to get out of going to this new school, which I like that concept. Both of these kids, her peers, her friends, reveal to her, that she has done things for them that have made her feel comfortable in their situations.
Right. And I think, when Grace is trying to solve, her own difficulties by talking to her friends, she's able to be reminded of how she helped them in their situations. The neighbor was new. Grace wanted to play with her and made her feel comfortable. The other friend was nervous to go into the pool. And, she, helped him get the courage to come into the swimming pool. And so getting that level of feedback from her friends helped build out, her courage and remind her that she helped others.
I like that. And I feel like that's so important nowadays, too, is to recognize. And I think that this book also helps, I think, kind of a self-esteem factor, too, because I think sometimes, as we're growing up and even as adults, sometimes we don't realize the impact we have on other people. We don't realize, the positive impact we might have on other people and how it's changed their lives.
Correct. I mean, it's just people need a lot of support. There's a lot of challenges in this world in general, and any level of support that anybody can get is definitely appreciated on multiple levels.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you. And I think that this is really important. We have so much to talk about. And I don't want to get into the symbolism of the desk yet till our next segment. But, I think also one of the other things that I like about it is that you're right. It's about looking at support from different angles and seeing, kind of what support is. Like, for example, you in the book, obviously the father, your wife, obviously the mother, and that connection, but also seeing these other people in her life that are supportive as well.
Correct. And that level of support is critical, to help get over that nervousness and make the preparations for, for example, going to a new school.
That's amazing. David, when we return, we have a lot to talk about. So don't change the channel, everybody that's listening to Live Your True Life Perspectives, because we have a lot to discuss. We still need to talk about not only the symbolism here, because there's a lot of symbolism in this book, and there's a lot of concepts about leaning on others and support and having people lean on you as well. And so this is something that connects not only us with our kids, but also it's something that we can all think about as a human. Also, later on, we want to talk about, what back to school means for many of us, whether it's our kids or ourselves as adults. And then the importance of literacy, but also the importance of support and what that looks like in a day-to-day basis. So don't change the channel. We have a lot more to talk about, as well as where you can find the book and how you can connect with David. So stay tuned. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. We've been talking to author David Valovcin, and David's an up-and-coming emerging author of A Desk to Lean On, as well as Financial Services Technologist, which I think is very interesting. So David has a lot of things going on, but I'm very interested in this book because I think that this book is amazing, but I think he also has a lot of ideas that he's coming up with as well. And so let's head back into the book real quick, David, because I really like the concept of, we had talked about how Grace had connected with her friends and, had been trying to basically get out of going to this new school. And she ends up coming back and sitting at her desk and kind of leaning at her desk and looking out that bedroom window. And you and I had talked about before this interview, kind of the sky and the window. And tell me more about, the concept behind that, and then kind of what your direction was with that, because I find that very interesting.
Sure. So the cover of the book, and the same photo is actually in the book as well, has Grace looking out the window, leaning on her desk. I purposely made the sun shine more than the clouds. So as Grace is trying to, ponder how she's supposed to solve this issue of not wanting to go to the new school, she's looking out her window, the sun is shining. And I purposely used that symbol to override the clouds in the sky. And of course, the desk itself is a symbol for this book. And as Grace finds out, the desk is, not needed, and she has friends and family to lean on.
I love that because we see her throughout the book kind of leaning on this desk, and it does have a lot of symbolism, because you're right, it's like she's leaning on the desk, but then she starts to realize that she can lean on other people.
Correct. And, she learns that on her own. She's not pressured to be forced into that. And she just, with her own, like Grace on the case, she's trying to find it out, and she does find out. And, and of course that desk, is not needed from that perspective.
And I like the concept where she learns not only, to me, it's like twofold. She learns that she can lean on other people, but she also learns that, other people are leaning on her. And I think that kind of balances it as well. She's coming from a powerful position as well.
Absolutely. And even though she's, a young girl with her friends who are similar to her age, again, she's reminded of how she helped them. And she comes to find out that through those stories that her friends share with her and how Grace helped them, she was personable. She reached out to them. She supported them. Her friends are supporting her. And that helped to build up her courage to start this new school.
And I like that. And I like the concept of her finding that on her own. And I think that that's so powerful too, because I think when we learn our own, I don't know if it's a lesson or our own life skills or what have you, it seems to be something that stays with us for the rest of our lives. And I think that that's what's so kind of empowering with your book, because I think that it's, it's Grace solving her own issues and then seeing the truth.
Right. And, it's very important, with Grace being, as young as she is and being able to solve this on her own in her own time, this is something that she could always reflect on, as a memory. As she gets older, she's starting high school, she's going off to college, or she's starting, her first job. These are memories that will help her to keep that courage going. Remember that she's gotten through various challenges throughout the years, and as she gets older, it should certainly help and remind her of the strong person that she is, and the courage that she has inside of her.
Very powerful, and I love this. So let's dig more into the concept of leaning in and support. I think that we've obviously we've all been through a lot in the last few years, and I feel like that support system is very important. And so, what would be some advice that you would give parents about helping their kid to find their support system, or being able to identify that support system?
So from my lessons learned, I did not want to push Grace, number one, to either feel a certain way, or just tell her, oh, you'll be fine, don't worry about it. I didn't want to go down that path, because she's not fine. She's right now, she was nervous, and so, but I also wanted to give her that leeway to find the answer on her own. And I think it's important as parents that, giving their child time to help solve the issue, let them know that they're there to help if they need the help, and being able to, also, give them some guidance on real life experiences that their own parents went through, and so that they can relate to it. They can take that in and process it however they wish. And the child may still be nervous, but at least the parents have been able to give that level of support, give those memories that the parents went through to help get them through their own challenges.
That's really neat. Yeah, I like that. And I like the concept too of kind of looking back into our own childhoods, and some of the things that we went through. Because I think sometimes as adults, we have a tendency of we don't remember some of the things we went through, or we don't go back and actually think about our own experiences. And also maybe some of us have judged our experiences a little bit in a negative way where we don't really want to talk about it as well. But we don't realize the value of how, explaining and presenting those experiences could have on our children.
Exactly. And, if you're able to get to your, I'll call it your child's level, no matter what age they are, especially if they're younger kids, giving them, examples that they can process, that they can relate to, try, if a parent can step out of the adult mindset and bring in, their own events in life that their child can relate to, I think it's very important. It shows that, the child is not alone in this, and that their parents can certainly help and guide.
I like that. And you were able to also, be able to channel your inner child as well and go back to some of those things that happened as a kid for you. And I think that was helpful too. And understanding, the importance of that too, because, I think that sometimes when we are, I guess, older, I don't know how to really say that because I don't really think age is really that relevant, but, it's almost like we kind of disconnect from, those types of things, but it would be like starting, a totally new job, in a new place and not knowing anybody. It might not be that extreme, but at the same time, we all have to go through those experiences and not know what to expect.
Right. I mean, a lot of things are just unknown. You don't, what's the next day going to be like? There's certain things that are unknown. There's a lot of things that need to be, solved and, to allow the day to continue. It's just, you just need to be able to, properly prepare, and have that courage, and knowing that you are a person, no matter your age, that, can get that done. You can overcome that challenge.
And allowing them to solve it too, I think, is so important because I think sometimes, I think it's a normal, natural response from a parent to want to solve the problem for a child, to want to make things easier, which we all want to make things easier. But I think sometimes there's just this need for them to really solve their own feelings, or at least be able to explore those feelings in their own way, in their own time.
Exactly. And I purposely held myself back. I so badly wanted to just help Grace solve the problem, not be nervous. But then again, as an adult, telling my child, oh, don't be nervous, you'll be fine. That's not the best, to me at least, that was not the best approach to take. I wanted to give her that level of freedom to, talk to other people, figure it out on her own. And if she was still struggling, of course, I would be there to support her and provide her, hopefully good guidance on, making that preparation for the new school.
I like that. Okay, so let's talk about too the concept of what back to school means. What does it mean for the parents, you think, David?
I think for back to school for the parents, it's it can be hectic, and just getting the kids ready for their new school year. I mean, whether it's a new school or just moving up to the next grade, there is some level of prep on the parent side, making sure that they have everything their child needs for day one. I think it's just important that as the parents are going through that preparations, that they keep their stress level down. Because if the parents are getting stressed, then the child is getting stressed, and if the child could be stressed enough with getting nervous for the new school year anyway. So if the parents are able to keep a solid ground, and just, be very proactive of getting things ready calmly, doing it not last minute, they giving themselves advance time to make that level of preparation, as long as the parents can try to keep their own stress level down with the new school year, that should hopefully help out their child as well.
I like that. And it's important because you're right. They're going to see and they're going to pick up on that. They're going to feel that stress. And it can be challenging because I know that many of us, you get scared, you get stressed. Oh, my kiddo's going to school. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to see them all day. Oh, this is a new school for them. And it can be at any age. Parents are parents. So you're right. It's like being able to watch your own stress and be aware of how that impacts them.
Exactly. And if you're stressed as a parent, then for sure the child is going to get stressed as well.
That makes total sense because they're going to pick up on that big time, obviously. And like when kids are going to school, do you have any thoughts on how to calm parental stress? So if a parent is stressed, maybe mom or dad spends more time with the kids, is maybe working from home, and it's hard because they've had the whole summer and they get to see the kids. Is there any advice that you give parents to be able to calm those nerves?
I would say, and what I did was a lot of family time, playing in the backyard, going to the bookstore, getting an ice cream, stuff that takes away from, oh my goodness, the school year's starting, we got to get ready. No, definitely don't do that. Take advantage of the summer, the nicer weather, and being able to spend some family quality time. The fun stuff that, a child will, definitely react to in a positive manner. Because, if you're constantly worried about stress, about the new school year and, your job, etc., your child's going to get stressed. So let's have the fun things, the family time, and that should definitely help for sure.
I like that. Being able to have the fun, the family time. It's not about quantity, it's about quality and making those things work. I like that a lot. Okay, cool. Yeah, so, okay. I want to ask you real quick before we segue into something else. Ideas on do you have some other books, I guess, up your sleeve that you're wanting to write, or some other thoughts that you're wanting to put out, as far as in book form?
Yeah, so I'm in the process of starting my second book. Of course, my daughter is the primary character on this, and I think it's a shift from the first book. It brings together, a lot more family interaction, family events. It's a very fun book that I think people would absolutely be able to relate to. No issue there.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it for sure. And I love the fact that Grace is, the muse in all of these as well. And I like that. And I like just the concept of that as well. And it's so neat that you're able to tell those stories. And, let's segue real quick too, because I know that a lot of people are going to be very interested, in finding this book. Where, how do we find you? How do we find the book?
Yeah. So, I have my website, www.davidvalovcin.com. On that site, it tells a little bit about myself. It has, a picture of me, etc. But it also has links to, where you can find the book. Right now, my book is on Amazon, and there's a link from my website to where you can find it on Amazon.
And also, for if you're listening live, it's live, but if you're listening in the podcast description, we'll also have that website where you can actually click on there and be able to go direct to that website. Real quick before we go to break, David, when you started writing this, did it come easy, or did it flow, or did it take some time to write the book?
It definitely took some time. Being my first book and self-publishing it definitely took some time. And putting my thoughts to paper was the first step in it all.
That's awesome. Yeah, the first book is always interesting. So I can definitely relate. So don't change the channel. We got lots more coming up because David is going to offer his nuggets of wisdom. And with every author that I have on Live Your True Life Perspectives, we always want to know what really matters to each one of these people that we interview, because it's so important. Because David has a story to tell. He also has these nuggets of wisdom that can really affect us in a very positive way, and that is really important to me. So definitely stay tuned, because we have that And I think if you're a parent or a child that's listening to this, but definitely for all you parents out there, it's tough. I mean, and there's emotions, and going back to school is not always easy, and so there's a lot of different things that go along with this. And so, A Desk to Lean On is definitely a book that could be a really good choice to be able to read with you and your kids together for that quality time. So stay tuned. Live Your True Life Perspectives with me, your host Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time. You know it. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. I've been talking with David, and we've been talking about his new book, A Desk to Lean On. And, now is the time where we're going to talk about the golden nuggets, because I know that David's got some of these. So, David, a couple of golden nuggets of wisdom that you would like to share with the Live Your True Life family.
Sure. So the first would be, give your child the support structure that they need in however manner works for your child. It may not work best for the parent per se to help guide their child, but whatever works best for their child to get over a specific challenge or hurdle, that's the best approach to take. That would be one area to focus in on. Another one would be, bringing up a parent's own experiences. I know I've already said it, but I just want to reiterate it again. It's very important that a child can relate to their parents. And if a parent can bring up memories that occurred during their childhood, new school, new job, whatever it happens to be, as long as the child can relate to it, it can help. It can definitely help for sure.
I love that. And I also love the fact of David of how you, within this book, to me, it's also about that support system. It's about locating that support system, allowing your kids to have that support system, and then allowing for that family of support. I think that's really important.
Yes, absolutely. It's friends, family, people are around, they love you, they want to support you, no matter what the challenge is. It's just, I can't emphasize enough how important it is as a parent to support your child in the best manner that works for them.
I also think another aspect too is that I think in any situation, when we're going through a new experience, however old we are, however young we are, I think that in the moment it can be very fearful, it can be very scary, and it's hard to kind of take a step back. But I think that I also like the fact of how, in the book, you as the father kind of take a step back in that moment. And I think that this is also something that it's hard to do because we want to take charge, we want to safeguard, we want to do all this stuff. But I think that's also something too that I find good, that resonates with me, is that I think being able to step back in a situation and saying, okay, eventually this is going to get solved. Eventually my kiddo is going to go to school, or eventually my kiddo is going to find solace and is going to be fine. But in the moment, let me be able to step back just so they can go through this on their own. It might take an hour, it might take a day, it might take a few days, but I know that eventually this is going to be solved.
Yeah, it will. It should eventually work itself out. As a parent, you obviously know your child the best. You know what works for them. The type of personalities they have. And I think the parent just needs to be able to proactively react, if you will, to their child's situation, and adjust the parent should adjust their own thinking and their own processing in the manner that best helps their child.
Definitely. And so I have a question for you, David. Once you write your second book, are you willing to come back on the show?
Absolutely. I had a wonderful time here, Ashley. Absolutely count me in for sure.
Awesome. David, I appreciate you being on here because I think that your book really resonates and it's going to really help a lot of kids, a lot of adults, and bringing together some quality time as well, reading the book together, but also, being able to support each other and understanding that no matter how young, we all have feelings and it's important to respect those feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just be there for your children. That's the most important message here.
David, thank you so much. And, for everybody that's listening to the show, definitely we're going to, it's on the radio, it's live on the radio, but then later on we have a podcast. So definitely checking out the podcast, Live Your True Life Perspectives. We're on, all aspects of podcasts, everything from Spreaker to Stitcher to Spotify to iHeart to, everything to Apple podcast as well. So don't miss that. There'll be even more information there. Also a link to where you can find David and also be able to buy a copy of the book. And in the meantime, just remember, it's all about, it's all about being able to communicate. It's all about support. It's all about being able to lean on one another and having that support system. And I think that's what's gotten us through so much stuff. And if we're able to really find that support system and locate that, that's so advantageous. And for a child to be able to have that support system not only gives them the feeling of being heard and the feeling of being there, but also they can see, like in this story, about how Grace realizes that she's been a support system for other people, and it also empowers them as well. So being able to even look at your own life, everybody that's listening, you're empowering other people while people are helping you. You're there for them. They're there for you. You're leaning on them and they're leaning on you, and this is really helping. So cultivating that support system, connecting with that support system, reaching out, even if you're far away from them. You can always go on FaceTime. You can always get on the phone. So stay tuned. We got a great show for you coming up next. Check out the website, ashleyburgess.com. And in the meantime, tune back into the show. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.